The red warships filled the sky above Earth like drops of blood in water. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of the Luna Command Station and watched them arrive. Her hands were steady as she gripped the railing. She had known this day would come. Humanity had been watching the stars for 50 years, listening to the silent whispers of destroyed civilizations. They all told the same story. The Vraxian Empire was coming. The Vraxians had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their empire stretched across 1,000,000 worlds. Every species that refused to bow before them was crushed to dust. Their technology was ancient and powerful. Their armies had never known defeat. They called themselves the Eternal Rulers, and for 10,000 years, no one had proven them wrong. War Prince Thulkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Dawn. He was tall and covered in dark purple scales that had seen 100 battles. His 3 eyes scanned the small blue planet below with boredom. Another primitive world, another easy conquest. He had done this 1,000 times before. His communication officer turned to him. The officer's scales were bright yellow, showing his youth. He had only served for 20 cycles. This was his first campaign. He spoke with excitement in his voice. War Prince, we have detected primitive radio signals from the planet. They call themselves humans. They have only just begun to explore their own star system. Shall I send the standard surrender demand? Thulkar waved one of his forearms in dismissal. Yes, yes. Give them 1 cycle to respond. When they refuse, we will demonstrate our power. Destroy one of their colony settlements. The small red planet will do. They always surrender after the first strike. But back on Luna Station, Admiral Vasquez was not preparing to surrender. She was preparing to fight. She walked quickly through the corridors to the war room. Inside, 20 officers from every nation on Earth waited for her. They wore the uniforms of the United Earth Defense Command, a force that had been built in secret for 3 decades. Status report, she said as she took her seat at the head of the table. General Chen from the Asian sector stood first. All ships are ready. The fleet is hidden behind the moon. 300 vessels armed and waiting. The Mars colonies have been evacuated to underground shelters. We are ready for their attack. Captain Okonkwo from the African Union spoke next. Our nuclear arsenal is prepared. The railguns on every major asteroid are charged. The minefields around Jupiter are active. We have done everything we can. Vasquez nodded slowly. She looked at each face around the table. These were the best and brightest of humanity. They had trained their entire lives for this moment. But training and reality were different things. They were about to fight an enemy that had conquered 1,000,000 worlds. We all know what we face, she said quietly. The Vraxians have never lost a war. Their empire has stood for 10,000 years. They have weapons we can barely understand. They have fleets that can destroy planets. She paused and looked at each of them. But they have never fought humans before. They think we are weak because we are young. They think we will run because we are small. They do not know that humans have been fighting since we learned to pick up stones. They do not know that we have spent our entire history at war with each other. They do not know that we have learned from every battle, every defeat, every victory. She stood up and placed her hands on the table. The Vraxians will come with pride and certainty. They will expect us to beg for mercy. Instead, we will show them what it means to fight for your home. We will show them what it means to face humanity. The room was silent for a moment. Then General Chen stood and saluted. One by one, every officer in the room stood. They knew the odds. They knew many of them would not survive the coming days. But they also knew they had no choice. This was their home. These were their families. This was their species. They would fight. 24 hours later, the Vraxian surrender demand arrived. It was transmitted on every frequency, translated into every human language. The message was simple and cold. Submit to the Vraxian Empire or be destroyed. You have 1 cycle to decide. Admiral Vasquez recorded humanity's response. Her message was broadcast across all channels, sent directly to the Vraxian flagship. She stood in her uniform, the flag of Earth behind her. Her voice was calm and clear. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Command. We have received your demand. Our answer is no. We will not surrender. We will not bow. If you want Earth, you will have to take it, and we will make you pay for every inch. On the bridge of the Crimson Dawn, War Prince Thulkar watched the humans' response with surprise. In 10,000 years, no species this primitive had ever refused. They always surrendered or begged for time, But this human female stood straight and defiant. It was almost amusing. "Very well," he said with a cruel smile. "They wish to see our power. Prepare the bombardment fleet. Target their Mars colonies. Let us teach these humans their first lesson in humility." The war had begun. The Vraxian Empire, undefeated for 10,000 years, was about to learn that humanity was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. They were about to discover that some species do not know how to surrender. They were about to meet Earth's children, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The Vraxian bombardment fleet approached Mars like a swarm of metal locusts. 50 warships, each one larger than the biggest human vessel. Their plasma cannons glowed with deadly energy. War Prince Thulkar watched from his command throne as the red planet grew larger on his screens. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Destroy the northern colony first. Leave enough survivors to carry our message back to Earth. Fear is a useful weapon." The Vraxian ships opened fire. Beams of superheated plasma rained down on the Martian surface. But the colony domes did not explode. The bombardment hit empty buildings and abandoned streets. The colonists were already gone, hidden deep underground. Thulkar's tactical officer looked confused. "War Prince, the colony is empty. They evacuated before we arrived." "How did they know we would target Mars?" Before Thulkar could answer, alarms screamed across the bridge. Red warning lights flashed. The communications officer shouted in panic. "Multiple contacts!" Human ships emerging from behind Mars. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UEDC Defiance, humanity's flagship. Around her ship, 200 human vessels accelerated to full speed. They were smaller than the Vraxian warships. Their armor was thinner. Their weapons were primitive. But they were fast and they were angry. "All ships engage at will," Vasquez commanded. "Show them what we're made of." The human fleet hit the Vraxian formation like a hammer. They did not fly in neat lines like the aliens expected. They scattered and weaved, each ship moving independently but working as one pack. The Vraxians had never seen anything like it. The first human attack came from nowhere. A destroyer called the Shanghai shot past a Vraxian cruiser and launched 6 nuclear missiles at point-blank range. The Vraxian shields absorbed most of the blast, but the ship staggered, its systems flickering. Thulkar gripped his command throne. "What kind of weapons are those?" "Return fire." "Destroy them all!" But the human ships would not stand still. They darted between the larger Vraxian vessels, firing railguns that punched holes through armor plating. They launched swarms of missiles that the Vraxian point defenses struggled to track. They used tactics the Empire had never encountered in 10,000 years of conquest. A wing of human fighters swarmed around a Vraxian destroyer. They were tiny compared to the massive alien ship, like insects attacking a giant. But these insects had teeth. They targeted the ship's engines with concentrated railgun fire. Metal tore and explosions rippled across the destroyer's hull. The ship began to spin out of control. The Vraxian gunners tried to swat the fighters away, but the humans were too fast. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully coordinated. They communicated constantly, sharing targeting data and warnings in milliseconds. The Vraxian command structure was too rigid to adapt. Then came the moment that would be remembered in both human and Vraxian history. The UEDC Tokyo was hit by a plasma beam that tore through her main hull. The ship was dying, her reactor going critical. Her captain, Commander Tanaka, had seconds to live. Instead of ejecting, Tanaka aimed his dying ship at the nearest Vraxian cruiser and pushed the engines to full power. The Tokyo accelerated like a missile, carrying her nuclear reactor straight into the alien ship's bridge. The explosion lit up Mars' orbit like a new sun. Both ships were destroyed. 200 human lives and 300 Vraxian warriors died in that moment, but the shock of it echoed through the Vraxian fleet. They had never seen an enemy deliberately sacrifice themselves. It was madness. It was terrifying. 3 more human ships followed Tanaka's example in the next hour. Each time they took a Vraxian vessel with them. Each time the Empire's soldiers felt something they had not felt in 10,000 years. Fear. The battle raged for 6 hours. The space around Mars became a graveyard of broken ships and floating bodies. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Communication channels filled with screams and orders and prayers in a dozen human languages. Admiral Vasquez watched her tactical display as ship after ship winked out. The Moscow was gone. The Berlin was crippled. The Mumbai was fighting with half her systems offline. But the humans kept fighting. Every ship that died took a Vraxian vessel with it. On the crimson dawn, Thulkar stared at his own displays in disbelief. He had started this battle with 50 ships. Now he had 37. The humans had started with 200. They still had 93. The math was impossible. The humans were losing more ships, but his fleet was taking worse damage. War Prince, his second officer, said quietly, "We should withdraw. We cannot win this battle without more losses than command will accept." Thulkar wanted to refuse. He wanted to stay and crush these primitive creatures, but his officer was right. He had already lost 13 ships, 13, against primitives who should not have been able to hurt even one Vraxian vessel. "Retreat," he said bitterly. "Jump to the edge of the system. We will regroup and request reinforcements." The surviving Vraxian ships fled. Their jump drives opened portals of light and they vanished, leaving behind the wreckage of their defeat. The humans did not pursue. They could not. Too many of their ships were damaged or destroyed. They had won, but victory tasted like ashes. Admiral Vasquez looked at the casualty reports. Over 20,000 human warriors were dead. 107 ships were destroyed or beyond repair. But they had driven back the Vraxians. They had proven that humanity could fight back. She opened a channel to all remaining ships. Her voice was tired but firm. "All vessels, this is Admiral Vasquez. You have done what many thought impossible. You have bloodied the Vraxian Empire. You have shown them that Earth will not fall easily. Honor the fallen. They died as warriors. They died protecting home. Now prepare yourselves. This was only the first battle. The war has just begun." In the cold void between stars, War Prince Thulkar recorded his report to the Empire. His words were bitter with shame. For the first time in 10,000 years, a Vraxian fleet had retreated. For the first time in living memory, the Empire had met an enemy that refused to die easily. The war with humanity had just begun, and already the Vraxians had learned a terrible truth. These humans did not fight like any other species. They fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to protect, and that made them the most dangerous enemy the Empire had ever faced. 3 months passed after the battle at Mars. The Vraxian Empire sent reinforcements. War Prince Thulkar would not make the same mistakes again. This time he brought 300 warships. This time he would crush the humans completely. The massive fleet entered the solar system near Jupiter. The giant planet's storms swirled in shades of orange and brown. Thulkar stood on his bridge and smiled. Humans had fought well at Mars, but they could not win against these numbers. The Empire's pride would be restored. "All ships, maintain formation," he ordered. "We will proceed directly to Earth. Do not stop for anything. These humans have proven crafty, but they cannot stand against our full might." But Admiral Vasquez had spent those 3 months preparing. She stood in the war room on Luna Station with her officers. On the holographic display, the Vraxian fleet glowed red as it passed Jupiter's orbit. "They are taking the bait," General Chen said with satisfaction. "They think we are hiding closer to Earth." Vasquez nodded. "Activate the Jupiter defense grid. Let us teach them another lesson." The Vraxian fleet was halfway past Jupiter when the first mine detonated. The explosion caught a destroyer on its port side, tearing through shields and armor. Before the Vraxians could react, 100 more mines activated. They had been floating dormant in Jupiter's orbit for months, waiting patiently like sleeping predators. Thulkar gripped his command throne as alarms screamed. "Mines! How did we not detect them? Full defensive formation. Point defenses to maximum." But the mines were just the beginning. As the Vraxian ships broke formation to avoid the explosions, human attack craft emerged from the swirling storms of Jupiter itself. They had been hiding in the upper atmosphere, their heat signatures masked by the planet's own energy. Over 300 small, fast ships appeared like ghosts and dove into the chaos. The human pilots were different this time. They had learned from Mars. They had studied the Vraxian weaknesses. They knew where to hit for maximum damage. They were faster, smarter, and even more aggressive than before. Captain Sarah Mitchell piloted her fighter, the Valkyrie 7, through a gap between 2 Vraxian cruisers. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Kim, locked onto the shield generator of the nearest ship. They fired a concentrated burst from their railguns. The shields flickered and failed for just 3 seconds. That was enough. A torpedo from another human ship shot through the gap and struck the cruiser's hull. The explosion rippled across the ship's surface. The cruiser began to list, its engines sputtering. "That is how we do it," Mitchell shouted over the comm channel. "Pack tactics, focus fire, make every shot count." All around Jupiter's orbit, the battle turned into a nightmare for the Vraxians. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They communicated constantly, coordinating attacks with a speed that the Empire's rigid command structure could not match. 3 fighters would attack from one direction, while 2 more hit from another angle. When a Vraxian gunner focused on one target, 2 more would appear from his blind spot. Then the human destroyers arrived. They had been waiting on the far side of Jupiter, engines cold and silent. Now they powered up and struck at the Vraxian formation's rear. The Empire's ships were trapped between the fast attack craft and the heavy guns of the destroyers. Admiral Vasquez watched the battle from her command center. The holographic display showed the chaos in perfect detail. Every human ship was a green dot. Every Vraxian vessel was red, and the red dots were dying much faster than the green ones. "They are learning," General Chen said with grim satisfaction. "Our pilots are getting better with every battle." "That is what humans do," Vasquez replied. "We adapt. We learn. We never fight the same battle twice." On the Crimson Dawn, Thulkar watched his fleet crumble. He had lost 40 ships already. 40. The humans were like a swarm of angry insects, impossible to swat away. Every time his gunners focused on one target, 2 more would strike from a different angle. "War Prince," his tactical officer said urgently. "We are losing cohesion. Our formation is breaking apart. The humans are using Jupiter's gravity well against us. Ships that try to escape are being pulled off course." Thulkar realized with growing horror that the humans had planned this perfectly. They knew the Vraxians would fly in formation. They knew the Empire's ships were large and powerful but slow to maneuver. They had turned Jupiter itself into a weapon, using the planet's massive gravity to disrupt the Vraxian fleet. "All ships, emergency jump," Thulkar commanded. "Retreat to rally point Sigma 9, but the humans were not done. As the Vraxian ships tried to align for their jump, human bombers made their final runs. These were piloted by volunteers, warriors who knew they would not return. They carried the largest nuclear weapons humanity had ever built. Commander Jackson was one of them. He flew his bomber, the Prometheus, straight at a Vraxian battleship. His crew of 4 sang an old war song as they accelerated. When the Vraxians shot them down 500 meters from their target, the nuclear payload detonated anyway. The battleship and 2 nearby cruisers were consumed in the blast. 8 more bombers followed. 8 more nuclear suns burned in Jupiter's orbit. 8 more Vraxian ships died. Each human crew gave their lives to take the enemy with them. They did not hesitate. They did not beg for mercy. They just flew forward into death, singing and defiant. When the remaining Vraxian fleet finally jumped away, they left behind 94 destroyed ships. 94 vessels of the Eternal Empire, reduced to burning wreckage. The humans had lost 127 fighters and 32 larger ships. The trade was costly but acceptable. Admiral Vasquez stood and saluted the empty space where the volunteer bombers had died. Around her, every officer in the command center did the same. They held the salute for a full minute in silence. These warriors had given everything. They deserved to be remembered. "Send a message to all ships," Vasquez said quietly. "The Battle of Jupiter is over. We have won a great victory. The Vraxian Empire sent 300 ships to crush us. They left with 200. We have proven that humanity cannot be intimidated. We have proven that we learn from every battle. We have proven that we will never stop fighting for our home." Far away, in the depths of space, Thulkar sat alone in his quarters. He had sent his report to the Empire. He had listed the losses. He had described the human tactics. But he had not mentioned the fear. He had not told them how his warriors had started to whisper, how they asked each other if the humans could actually be beaten. For 10,000 years, the Vraxian Empire had been unstoppable. Now, for the first time, doubt had entered their hearts. And War Prince Thulkar knew that doubt was more dangerous than any weapon. The Vraxian Empire had been humiliated twice. This could not stand. The High Command made their decision. They would commit a full war fleet to crush humanity once and for all, 500 capital ships, 3,000 support vessels, 10 million warriors. They would not just defeat Earth. They would make an example of it. War Prince Thulkar led the fleet. His pride had been wounded, but now he would restore it with human blood. The Armada emerged from jump space at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was the largest force the Empire had assembled in 1,000 years. This time there will be no tricks, Thulkar announced to his fleet. We will advance slowly and carefully. We will destroy every human ship we find. We will bombard their orbital stations. Then we will occupy their planet and teach them what it means to defy the Eternal Empire. The fleet moved toward Earth like a slow tide of crimson death. Admiral Vasquez watched them come. She stood in the rebuilt Luna Command, looking at the tactical displays. The numbers were impossible. Humanity had only 300 ships left that could fight. Against 500 Vraxian capital ships, the math was simple. Earth would fall. All defensive stations report ready, General Chen said quietly. Orbital weapons are charged. Ground forces are deployed. But Admiral, even with everything we have, they will reach Earth. Vasquez nodded slowly. I know. We will make them pay for every kilometer. We will fight them in space. We will fight them in orbit. And if they land, we will fight them on every street and in every building. They think they will occupy Earth? They have no idea what that means. The battle for Earth began 3 days later. Human ships met the Vraxian fleet at the edge of the asteroid belt. They fought with the desperate courage of warriors defending their only home. They used every trick they had learned. They sacrificed themselves in kamikaze runs. They coordinated in ways the Vraxians still could not predict, but this time the numbers were too great. For every Vraxian ship destroyed, the humans lost 3. The Empire's fleet pushed forward slowly, grinding through the human defenses like a machine. Ships died by the dozens. Thousands of human warriors perished in the cold void. After 2 weeks of fighting, the Vraxian fleet reached Earth orbit. Only 47 human ships remained. The orbital defense stations fired everything they had. Nuclear missiles and railguns and laser batteries filled the space around Earth with deadly light. But the Vraxians had learned too. They destroyed the stations one by one. Then came the landing. Vraxian troop ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. They landed in North America, Europe, Asia, Africa. Millions of alien warriors poured out, armed with plasma weapons and powered armor. They expected quick victory against primitive humans. Instead, they found hell. The humans had spent months preparing. Every city was a fortress. Every building was a weapon. The Vraxians took New York on the first day, but the humans made them pay for it with 10,000 alien lives. When the Vraxians tried to hold the city, they found that occupying it was impossible. Human soldiers attacked from sewers and rooftops. Civilians threw bombs from windows. Children directed Vraxian patrols into kill zones. The Empire's warriors had conquered 1,000 worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Every human was a soldier. Every corner hid a trap. Every moment was danger. In the ruins of Tokyo, a squad of Vraxian warriors advanced through the streets. Their leader, Squad Commander Ziktar, felt uneasy. The buildings were too quiet. The streets were too empty. His sensors showed no movement, but his instincts screamed danger. Stay alert, he ordered his troops. These humans are cunning. They hide and wait like the explosion came from below. A human had detonated a bomb in the underground tunnels. The street collapsed, dropping half of Ziktar's squad into the hole. Before the survivors could react, human soldiers emerged from the buildings. They wore no uniform. Some were old. Some were young. One was a woman holding a baby in one arm and a rifle in the other. The firefight lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, Ziktar was the only Vraxian still alive. He crawled behind cover, bleeding from a dozen wounds. He watched the humans disappear back into the ruins like ghosts. They had not even stayed to confirm their kills. They just moved on to the next ambush. This scene repeated itself in every occupied city. The Vraxians controlled the territory they stood on, but as soon as they moved, the humans took it back. The Empire had claimed to occupy Earth, but in reality, they only held what their soldiers could physically see. Weeks turned into months. The siege of Earth continued. The Vraxians brought more troops, more weapons, more supplies, but the humans would not break. For every kilometer the Empire advanced, they lost 100 warriors. For every building they captured, they lost 10 tanks. The worst part for the Vraxians was the human spirit. They would not surrender. Even when captured, humans would sabotage equipment, poison supplies, attack guards. The Empire had expected defeated people to become obedient slaves. Instead, every human remained an enemy until death. In the underground bunkers beneath Luna Station, Admiral Vasquez coordinated the resistance. Earth was occupied but not defeated, and while the Vraxians wasted their strength trying to hold the planet, she was working on something they did not expect: humanity's counterattack. Human scientists worked day and night studying captured Vraxian technology. They learned how the alien shields worked. They discovered how to track Vraxian jump signatures. They found weaknesses in the Empire's weapons, and they built new ships combining human creativity with stolen alien knowledge. 6 months after the invasion began, Vasquez gathered her remaining commanders. They met in secret, deep underground where Vraxian sensors could not find them. She stood before them with fire in her eyes. "The Vraxians think they have won," she said. "They think that occupying Earth means victory. But they are wrong. They have never fought an enemy like us before. They do not understand that humans do not know how to give up. They do not know that every day they spend on Earth makes us stronger and them weaker." She activated a hologram showing hundreds of new warships. "While they waste their warriors in our cities, we have been building our fleet. Ships that combine their technology with our tactics. Ships that can match their weapons but fly with our speed. Ships crewed by warriors who have learned how to beat them." General Chen stood. "When do we strike?" Vasquez smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator ready to hunt. "Soon, very soon. The Vraxians came to conquer Earth. Instead, they will learn the most important lesson in human history. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are warriors. And we are done playing defense." On Earth's surface, the Vraxian occupation continued its slow collapse. On Luna, humanity's new fleet prepared to launch. And in the vastness of space, War Prince Thulakar sat in his command chamber and wondered why victory tasted like ashes. He had defeated the human fleet. He had occupied their planet. But somehow he felt like he was losing. The humans would not break. They would not surrender. They just kept fighting day after day, night after night. And for the first time in his long life, Thulkar began to understand that occupying a world was very different from conquering its people. The attack came without warning. One moment, the Vraxian orbital fleet circled peacefully above Earth. The next moment, space itself seemed to explode with human warships. Hundreds of vessels appeared from every direction, emerging from behind the moon, from within asteroid fields, from hiding spots all across the solar system. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the UEDC Vengeance. Around her ship, the entire human fleet moved as one. These were not the same ships the Vraxians had fought before. These vessels gleamed with stolen alien technology. Their shields could match Vraxian strength. Their weapons could pierce Empire armor. And they were still piloted by humans who fought like wolves. "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Vasquez commanded. "Show them what 6 months of planning looks like. Make them regret ever coming to our system." The human fleet struck the Vraxian orbital forces like a hammer, but this time it was a hammer with alien steel. The first volley of human plasma cannons caught the Vraxians completely by surprise. Shields that had always protected them buckled and failed. Armor that had seemed invincible melted under concentrated fire. War Prince Thulkar scrambled to his battle station. Alarms screamed throughout the Crimson Dawn. His tactical officer shouted reports of ship after ship going offline. The humans were everywhere, and they were fighting with weapons that should not exist. "How do they have our technology?" Thulkar roared. "How is this possible?" His science officer answered with fear in his voice. "War Prince, they have been studying every ship we lost. Every piece of wreckage. Every captured weapon. They have learned from us while we occupied their planet. They used the time to build these vessels. The battle for Earth's orbit lasted 6 hours. 6 brutal hours of ship-to-ship combat. But this time the Vraxians could not rely on superior technology. The humans had learned too much. Every advantage the Empire once held was gone. All that remained was warrior against warrior. And in that contest, the humans proved they were the better fighters. The Vraxian orbital fleet was destroyed. Not defeated. Not forced to retreat. Destroyed. Every ship was either burning wreckage or had fled through emergency jumps. The siege of Earth was broken. Human forces on the ground watched the sky light up with explosions and cheered. After 6 months of fighting in the streets, after 6 months of blood and death and sacrifice, they were free. But Admiral Vasquez did not celebrate. She stood on her bridge and looked at the remnants of the Vraxian fleet as they jumped away. She made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "Navigation, plot a course," she ordered. "Follow them through their jump gates." General Chen looked at her with shock. "Admiral, you mean to pursue them? Into Empire space? That is suicide. We barely survived defending our own system." Vasquez turned to face her crew. Every eye in the command center was on her. She spoke slowly and clearly. "The Vraxian Empire came to our home. They killed millions of our people. They thought they could crush us and move on. But they were wrong. We are not going to hide in our system and wait for them to come back. We are going to take the war to them. We are going to show every species in this galaxy that the Empire can be beaten." She paused and looked at each officer. "I am not ordering anyone to follow. Any ship that wants to stay and defend Earth may do so with honor. But I am going. I am going to chase these butchers back to their worlds. I am going to fight them on their territory. I am going to make them understand that humanity is not prey." The command center was silent for a moment. Then Lieutenant Park stood at his station. "The vengeance will follow you, Admiral." One by one, every officer stood. Every captain of every ship sent the same message. They would follow. They would fight. They would take the war to the Empire. The human fleet jumped. They followed the Vraxian retreat signatures through the alien gates. For the first time in history, human ships left their solar system. For the first time ever, the hunters became the hunted. The Empire's worlds were about to learn what humanity meant by war. They emerged in a system called Crix 7, a minor colony world of the Empire. The Vraxian defenders there expected reinforcements from Earth. Instead, they found the human fleet. The battle was short and brutal. The humans gave no mercy. They had learned that lesson from the Empire itself. After the battle, Admiral Vasquez did something that shocked her own officers. She broadcast a message to the planet below. The message went to the civilian population, not just to Vraxian citizens, but to all the conquered species who lived under Empire rule. "People of Crix 7, she said in a voice that was translated into 100 alien languages. "We are humanity. The Vraxian Empire came to our world and tried to crush us. They failed. Now we bring you a message. The Empire is not invincible. They can be beaten. They can be made to bleed. If you are tired of living under their rule, rise up. Fight back. You are not alone anymore." The message spread across the planet in minutes. Within hours, riots broke out in the capital city. Conquered peoples who had lived under Vraxian rule for generations suddenly dared to hope. The Empire had always seemed eternal and unstoppable. Now a young species from a tiny planet had proven that was a lie. The human fleet jumped again. They hit another Empire world. And another. Each time they fought the Vraxian defenders. Each time they broadcast the same message. Each time rebellions ignited in their wake. The Empire had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. Humanity was destroying that fear system by system. On the fifth world, they found something unexpected. A species called the Kelthera had been conquered by the Vraxians 300 years ago. They were a peaceful people who had never wanted war. But when the human fleet arrived and the fighting began, the Kelthera made a choice. They attacked their Vraxian overseers. They freed their people from the Empire's prisons. And when the battle was over, their leaders came to Admiral Vasquez. "We wish to join you," their elders said through a translator. "We have watched your species fight. You do not conquer. You liberate. You do not demand tribute. You ask only that we fight for our own freedom. Give us weapons and we will stand with you against the Empire." Vasquez looked at the alien elder. Then she smiled and offered her hand. "Welcome to the Resistance. Together we will show the Empire that their age of tyranny is over." The human fleet became a liberation fleet. Kelthera ships joined them. Then the Prixoni from the sixth world. Then the Zalarians from the eighth. Species that had been enemies under Empire rule now united against their common oppressor. And at the head of this growing armada, humanity showed them how to fight. War Prince Thulkar sat in his chamber on the Crimson Dawn and read the reports with growing despair. 16 worlds were in open rebellion. The human fleet had grown to over 1,000 ships as conquered species joined their cause. Every day, more of the Empire's territory fell into chaos. His communication officer interrupted his thoughts. "War Prince, the High Command demands your presence. They wish to discuss the human problem." Thulkar stood slowly. The human problem. They still called it that. as if this was just another minor issue, but he knew better. He had fought the humans. He had seen what they could do. This was not a problem. This was the beginning of the end. Across the galaxy on 100 worlds, people looked to the sky and whispered the same word: hope. For 10,000 years, the Vraxian Empire had seemed eternal. Now a species called humanity had proven that nothing lasts forever. The age of the Empire was ending. The age of freedom was beginning. And at the head of the Liberation Fleet, Admiral Elena Vasquez and her warriors prepared for their final battle. They were going to strike at the heart of the Empire itself. They were going to attack Vraxia Prime. The war that had started with humanity's last stand would end with the Empire's fall. Vraxia Prime hung in space like a jewel of blood and gold, the capital of the 10,000-year empire. The throne world that had never been threatened, never been attacked, never known fear. Until now, the Liberation Fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of the system. Over 2,000 ships. Human vessels flew alongside Kelthera cruisers, Prixoni destroyers, Solarian carriers, and ships from 50 other species, all united under one purpose: end the Empire. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Vengeance and looked at the planet that had sent armies to crush her world. She felt no hatred, only determination. This would end today one way or another. All ships form battle lines, she commanded. This is what we have fought for. This is what our warriors died for. Today we prove that tyranny cannot last forever. Today we show the galaxy that freedom is worth any price. The defense fleet of Vraxia Prime was massive. 3,000 warships, the finest the Empire had. They moved into position with the confidence of warriors who had never lost a battle on their home soil. War Prince Thulkar commanded them from the Crimson Dawn. This was his chance to redeem himself, to show that the Empire was still invincible. All ships advance, Thulkar ordered. Drive these rebels back into the void. Show them that Vraxia Prime cannot fall. Show them that the Empire is eternal. The two fleets collided in the largest space battle the galaxy had ever seen. 5,000 ships fought in the orbit of Vraxia Prime. Plasma beams crossed the void like lightning. Nuclear fire bloomed like deadly stars. Ships died by the hundreds as the battle raged hour after hour. But this time the Vraxians faced an enemy that would not break. The humans fought with the fury of a species defending their right to exist. The Kelthera fought with the rage of 300 years of slavery. The Prixoni fought with the desperation of people who had nothing left to lose. Every species in the Liberation Fleet had their own reasons to hate the Empire, and together they were unstoppable. The battle turned when a wing of human carriers launched their fighters. Over 10,000 small craft swarmed into the Vraxian formation. The Empire's gunners could not track them all. The fighters struck like angry wasps, targeting engines, weapons, shield generators. Behind them, the heavy ships of the Liberation Fleet punched through the weakened Vraxian lines. Thulkar watched his fleet crumble. He had started with 3,000 ships. Now he had less than half that number. The Liberation Fleet pressed forward relentlessly. Human tactics combined with alien technology proved devastating. Every advantage the Empire once held was gone. War Prince, his tactical officer said quietly, "We cannot win this battle. We must withdraw to the planetary shields and regroup." Thulkar wanted to refuse. He wanted to fight until the last ship was destroyed. But he was not a fool. The battle was lost. All ships fall back to the shield perimeter. We will make our stand there. The surviving Vraxian fleet retreated behind the massive shields that protected their capital world. Admiral Vasquez ordered her fleet to hold position just outside the shield barrier. The Liberation Forces had won the battle in space, but the war was not over. Vraxia Prime was protected by the most powerful defensive shields in the galaxy. Breaking through would cost thousands of lives. Vasquez sat in her command chair and thought. There had to be another way. So much blood had already been spilled. So many warriors had died on both sides. She opened a direct communication channel to the Crimson Dawn. "War Prince Thulkar, this is Admiral Vasquez. I wish to speak with you." There was a long silence. Then Thulkar's image appeared on her screen. His scales were scorched from battle damage. His 3 eyes showed exhaustion and something else. Resignation. "You have come to demand our surrender," he said. It was not a question. "I have come to offer you a choice," Vasquez replied. "Your empire is broken. Half your territory is in rebellion. Your finest fleet has been defeated. You can lower your shields and continue this fight. More will die. Your capital may fall. Or you can end this now. Surrender the Empire, and I promise you this. We will not massacre your people. We will not destroy your world. We seek only the end of your tyranny, not the extinction of your species." Thulkar was silent for a long moment. He looked at something off-screen, then back at Vasquez. "You fought well, human. Better than anyone in 10,000 years. You did something I thought impossible. You made me doubt the Empire." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was tired. "I have been a warrior all my life. I have conquered 50 worlds for the Empire. I believed we were bringing order to chaos, civilization to savages. But you showed me the truth. We were not civilizing the galaxy. We were enslaving it. And you, the species we called primitive, taught us what true civilization means." Thulkar straightened in his command throne. "I will relay your terms to the High Command, but Admiral, you should know something. The Empire's leaders will not surrender easily. They have ruled for so long that they cannot imagine any other way. If I go to them with this offer, they may execute me for cowardice." Vasquez nodded slowly. "Then do not go to them. Go to your people. Tell them the truth. Tell them what you have seen. Let them choose their own future." The communication ended. For 6 hours, nothing happened. The two fleets faced each other across the shield barrier. Warriors on both sides waited tensely, ready to resume the battle at any moment. Then something unexpected occurred. The planetary shields began to lower. But it was not the High Command who had given the order. It was the people of Raxia Prime themselves. Thulkar had broadcast Vasquez's offer across the entire planet. The citizens had heard, and after 10,000 years of war, they were tired. They wanted peace. Riots broke out in the capital city as Vraxian civilians demanded their leaders surrender. The High Command tried to suppress the uprising, but their own military refused to fire on their own people. The Empire's warriors had seen too much. They had watched primitive humans defeat their finest fleets. They had seen conquered species rise up and fight for freedom. They no longer believed in the eternal empire. 3 days later, the formal surrender was signed. The Vraxian High Command, what remained of it, signed the treaty on board the Vengeance. Admiral Vasquez stood across the table from them. Behind her were representatives of every species in the Liberation Fleet. Human, Kelthara, Prixoni, Zalarian, and 50 others. All free, all equal. The terms were simple. The Vraxian Empire would dissolve. All conquered worlds would be granted independence. War criminals would face justice. But the Vraxian people themselves would not be punished. They would be given the chance to join the new galactic order as equals, not masters. After the signing, War Prince Thulkar approached Admiral Vasquez privately. He had resigned his commission and would stand trial for his actions during the war. But before he left, he wanted to say something. "You asked me once why we could not defeat you," he said quietly. "I have thought about this for many months. I believe I finally understand. We fought for empire. You fought for freedom. We fought because we were ordered to. You fought because you chose to. We fought to conquer. You fought to survive. And in the end, that made all the difference." Vasquez offered him her hand. After a moment, he took it. "Go tell your people," she said. "Tell them what you learned. Tell them that strength is not measured in conquered worlds. Tell them that true power comes from inspiring others, not enslaving them. Your empire fell, but your people can still have a future. A better future than the one your ancestors chose." The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The Vraxian Empire, undefeated for 10,000 years, had fallen. Humanity, the young species from the small blue planet, had led a rebellion that freed 1,000,000 worlds. And they had done it not by replacing one empire with another, but by offering something the galaxy had not seen in millennia. Choice. Freedom. Hope. Years later, Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the memorial garden on Luna Station. Around her were the names of every human warrior who had died in the war, over 200,000 names carved in stone. She touched the wall gently and whispered, "We did it. We showed them that humans do not surrender. We proved that freedom is worth any cost. Your sacrifice was not in vain. The galaxy is free because you fought. Rest well, warriors. You earned it." She looked up at Earth, visible through the window. The planet had been scarred by war but was healing. Cities were being rebuilt. Children played in streets that had been battlefields. Life continued as it always did. The Vraxian Empire had thought it was invincible. Then humanity's fleet arrived, and the galaxy learned a truth that would echo through the ages. No tyranny lasts forever. No empire is eternal, and when warriors fight not for conquest but for freedom, when they battle not for glory but for the right to exist, they become a force that even 10,000 years of dominion cannot stop. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun. And it all started because humanity refused to bow,